Hello, trampoline friends. Welcome to Trampoline Insight. I'm Nuno alongside Stephen Gluckstein, and this is episode 18.
On today's episode, we're going to be talking about trampoline parks as well as garden trampolines. We will talk about the pros and cons of each and what role they play with competitive trampoline.
And why don't we start by thanking Thomas Hamlin for sending us some topics for us to discuss. We had some topics on our list, but we always enjoy when people send us topics. So if you have something that you'd like for us to talk about and to give our personal opinion about, just drop a comment down below and let us know what you think. Today is trampoline parks. So let's discuss the good things.
All right. So, and I think this is also a complicated discussion. I think we can go on and on. And I think
this is a very complicated discussion.
And I don't think there's necessarily a right or a wrong answer. I think it depends on people's values and philosophies and beliefs. But all right. So the good things. What do I think are the good things? I think that trampoline has gotten more publicity, right? I think no one in the world knew the difference between a string bed and a web bed, right? So there are more teenagers now that are exposed to trampoline. I also think that trampoline parks are good for having fun. I think they're good exercise. And I think that and I don't know if it's trampoline parks, I think it's more garden trampolines, like backyard trampolines, that have kind of grown as a sport, more not so much trampoline parks. I think a lot of the athletes that do backyard trampolining or garden trampolining go to trampoline parks, right, and use them as a tool. But I wish they would use competitive trampoline gyms as a tool, right? So what about you? What do you think? Are there anything I missed that you think these are
I think from? I think you're spot on, but I think we need to separate a little bit Europe from the United States. I think the United States, it's a big country where backyard trampolines were already very popular. It's very normal for a family to have a backyard trampoline, right? In other countries, it's not so normal, I think. I come from Portugal, and I don't remember anyone that had a backyard trampoline when I was growing up, for example. But I do think that the trampoline parks came and gave life to garden trampoline and to have more backyard trampolines here in the United States. And like you said, they put these teenagers on a space doing more things than we ever did with that age, and gave them the freedom to do whatever they want on a trampoline that we did not have. Right, but so that has good things and bad things, obviously, but I think the publicity is for sure a fact. Like trampolines became more publicized. Everyone, or not everyone, but a lot of people, if they want to organize a birthday party for their child, will consider a trampoline park to go do a birthday party, right? So that brings people into trampoline, and I agree with you. Apart from the injury rates we'll talk later, and maybe other things that trampoline parks can improve, I think those were definitely good things, and the exercise that these people that go to the trampoline parks and even the backyard trampoline gives them, that would not give them otherwise, I think it's very beneficial, because as I think studies have shown, the United States is a country where the percentage of obese people is significantly higher than other countries. So I think that is something to consider, and I think that is something that trampoline can help with, right? Of course, right. I think if teenagers have more exercise when they're younger, then the probability of becoming obese in the future reduces. So I think that's something that trampoline can definitely work, and it can definitely help. And I think it has been helping, if just my opinion. But I think in Europe is not, backyard trampoline is not as famous, but I think we do see trampoline parks growing up as well. There are some in Portugal that there was none when I moved here, for example.
And I think one other thing that we missed that is a huge component, it's a benefit, I think, in general. I don't know if it benefits competitive trampoline yet, but these kids are creative, right? These kids are thinking outside the box. They're doing different combinations, different skills, and our sport has been slowly kind of narrowing. And now with the new rules coming out soon, where the athletes may have two opportunities, right? We might see a little more creativity, but right, it's still very similar routines that these athletes are following. So
Absolutely.
I think the creativity plays a huge role. Like I said, I don't know if it's um, carrying over to competitive trampoline. I think the athletes who are teenagers right now, who are seeing the backyard trampoline or garden trampoline athletes and have some influence, maybe they'll be influenced in a few years, right, when they're senior elite athletes. But time will tell, right? This is still a new, at least the garden trampoline is still relatively new in its boom, right? It exploded. Now it's super popular.
And
So yeah,
I can tell you, Stephen, that we had some new athletes that started in their backyard trampoline and then went to some trampoline parks, or even some other gyms that provide open gym, which is almost the same thing as a trampoline park. Because if you provide an open gym that is unregulated, then you can do anything
yeah,
that you can do on a trampoline park, right? So we had some athletes that the parents see the potential on their kids, and like, okay, let's look for a trampoline gym with
yeah,
actual classes close to us, right? We had some athletes come to us, and it is extremely funny because if they're actually in the beginning of their development, it's actually really easy to grab them, shape them, and make something out of them. But if they're already far ahead on their development, if they're super creative, it's sometimes really, really hard to say, hey, calm down. Okay,
right.
let's work a little bit on this first before we go to that temple. But I want to do that. I saw that video of that kid doing this. I want to do that. Whoa, whoa.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll get there. We'll get there. But let's go through these steps here first. You're missing a lot of these important steps before you want to do those things, right? So some kids are actually harder to shape into good habits, I think. But we had a couple successful ones, which makes me really, really happy, I think. It's
Yeah.
really happy.
And that's funny that you said it. So this brings me to my next question, right? Like, what's the difference between the athletes that are attending the trampoline parks and staying in the garden trampolines versus the athlete that comes to, a competitive trampoline program? So I think if we can kind of, and I think you've already started to realize what that difference is, then we can kind of
Yeah.
feed to them and, tend to them and then slowly bring them over. I know the athletes that come. So what we do at our gym is we have open gyms and it's highly regulated. So there's pretty much one coach per two trampolines, right? So, and there's only one person at a time, so 1-to-2 ratio is pretty significant. But since it's considered open gym, these athletes that train in the garden trampolines, they come because they're excited, because they're like, no one's going to teach me. They're going to let me do it my
Tell me
way
what to
that I want to
do.
do.
Yeah.
And to an extent, right? So we have rules. We say, if you want to flip, you have to do it into our foam pit, right, which is our marshmallow mat.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to land it 3 times before you can move on to like a smaller mat, and then you move to a smaller mat, right? So they have to jump through all these hoops, to do the progressions to show us, before they move on. And there's still, with open gym, there's obviously there's rules like no triples, right, and of
Yeah.
the such. But there are athletes that are coming in that are doing double backs in a row, right, on their feet, which is quite impressive. But then, and this is all it takes. I think the athletes, they enjoy learning, and when
Yeah.
they find out that the coach doesn't want to be like a tyrant or a dictator and tell them, point your toes and keep your legs straight, but the coaches, we're there because we want to help the athletes, right? We want to help them, whether that's learning a new skill or
Mm-hmm.
keeping them safe and helping them succeed in competition. And I think the athletes, once they realize that, they're like, oh, this coach is cool, he's going to teach me some other things. And I think that's all it takes. So I think then that's a question that I jumped ahead on, is like, what can we change about the culture? Is, I think, if more gyms could do a highly regulated open gym, and that appeals to these athletes, there could be a way to keep these kids safe, right? So
Yeah,
what
for
do you
sure.
what
I
difference
think
do you see in those athletes that stay
so.
away from the competitive gym and don't?
That's a really good question, because I'm all about personality. I think a high level athlete has their own personality. Okay, and we were high level athletes, and we are stubborn. We know that we're stubborn, and we enjoy being stubborn, and we enjoy things our way. And I can tell you, my
Mhm.
coach will tell you that I'm stubborn as a rock. Okay, and there were many times that I did not listen, and I did not want to listen, right? Because I knew everything. I know everything. I still know everything, and I knew everything.
Yep.
And when he told me that we should do things that way, no, I wanted my way, right? And that's, I think, what creates really, really great athletes. Okay, it doesn't mean that only people like that become high-level athletes, but I think the percentage of stubborn people being high-level athletes is significantly higher of the not stubborn people. That's just my opinion. Okay, I have no study about it, nothing scientific. So what I see with these athletes, it's actually very interesting. The ones that do the garden trampoline, or that show up, that more curious about, are the more independent ones, are the more stubborn ones, are the ones that want to win at no cost, are the ones that want to do things their way, and they're highly motivated to do so. Okay, the ones, not all of them, but the ones that we receive in the gym are most of the times the ones that the parents put in the gym to have a career, or to have their physical exercise and all those things. And that doesn't mean that all of them have that trait on their personalities. And I feel like the
Mhm.
backyard trampoline guys, it's very rare to miss one that does not have that stubbornness on them. Okay, it's
Mhm.
really, unless they're in the very beginning and they just saw it and they really tried it, they really like it, and they look for a club right away, right? But if they're already doing doubles or Cody's, or
Right.
Cody, for example, like they love to do, right? Or double, yeah, that was so cool, right? Like those guys, I feel like they have that trait in their personality of the self motivation. They're self motivated to do things,
Yeah.
which I think in life, self motivation is what let us succeed. If you don't have self motivation, you'll get stuck at the bottom of the line. Simple as that.
Yeah.
Coaches can push for you and bring you up to a certain point. It gets to a certain point that if you're not self motivated, you can say bye bye. And I feel like
Yeah.
these kids are a little bit more tenacious on those things. They're more self motivated than most kids, and they're stubborn. And the, it's interesting because I love that about them. But sometimes it's too late to change them. It's too late to grab them and say,
Maybe.
some of them, it's
Yeah.
not all, of course, they're all different, right? So like you said, if you have a regulated open gym, you might be able to steer them into the good way, or doesn't mean that they're in a bad way,
Mhm.
but to steer them into a more skills drills
Right.
progression like we enjoy, right? It's possible, but some of them are really hard, that's all. And
I I think you hit the nail on the head with that, right? And I think there's been so many movies where, right, there's the rebel kid that doesn't want to partake in your team, or doesn't want
yeah,
to play football, or doesn't want to be on your baseball team, right? That and then they end up being the superstar on the team, right? It's a tell old tale that happens all the time, and I think, like you said, there's something about that characteristic of a rebel, right? Or someone that wants to do it by themselves, that, if you can, I don't know if it's the right word, but tame them or teach them, right? Then they could be a superstar. And I think also
absolutely.
one thing that we missed is these kids are fearless, right? So I think this is something that our competitive athletes could benefit from, being a little bit
Yes,
exposed to them as well, right?
absolutely.
That that they're on either end of the spectrum, right? Some of our athletes are afraid of their own shadow before they even step onto the trampoline, and then
Absolutely.
some are not afraid when they absolutely should be afraid, because the things that they're doing is dangerous, right? So speaking
So
of dangerous,
I just want to
yeah,
compliment one thing there, because like you said, right, these kids are how do you say, rebels, the rebel part, right? So sometimes to fit them on a team, it's not so easy, right? But if they can be a little bit of a rebel but still partake in team activities, and still understand, and not disrupt the team environment, I think that's when they really, really can succeed, because
yeah,
being part of a team is very important. They I think we need to be And I think we are cases of this, right? We need to be a little bit rebels. We need to 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 want things our way, knowing there is other ways, and we need to allow them to shape our lives as well, and also work as a team. I think that's the part that we really cannot forget there.
And I think it's easier in our sport, right? Because it's an individualized sport, but we train as a team, right?
Correct.
So and most good coaches are coaching their athletes on an individual basis anyway.
Yep.
You know, so easier to do in trampoline than it would be in football, you know, where
Absolutely.
that person has to block for the quarterback, and if he's not doing his job, the quarterback's, you know, going to get tackled.
All right, you mean football? Oh, you mean American football?
American football. Sorry,
got it. I was just making
American
sure
football. Yes, the better of the two footballs.
I saw I saw a podcast yesterday that they think that American football should be called tackle ball because it's not played with your feet, so it should not be called football. Football should be what soccer is, and then the American football should be tackle ball because the goal of the game is to tackle people.
Tackle. Yeah, I think that would be a fair fit, right? I think that'd be good.
It just doesn't ring as well on the ear. That's all.
All right, so let's move. What are the bad things about trampoline parks, right? I don't think it's a secret that there's high potential for injuries in both the trampoline parks and the garden trampolines or backyard trampolines.
Well, I think it's important to say that there is injuries in competitive trampoline as well. Okay,
right.
There is injuries everywhere. Okay, it's not just garden trampolines. And again, we're going to look at some statistics, but for me, without even looking at them, we just feel the percentages are significantly higher. That's all. Now, due to what, we can discuss about it, but there is injuries everywhere. I think that's important, right?
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing here is there are things that you can do to prevent them, or you know, to try to prevent them, right? So like, yeah, people are going to get in car accidents every day in every country, but that doesn't mean drive 150 miles an hour, you know, down a 25-mile-an-hour road, right? Just because accidents happen. All right, so let's take a look at these statistics that we found. All right, so here we have this document that was found, written by a few pediatric doctors. It was found on a website that's linked. It's pediatricspublications.org. And unfortunately,
we'll put the link on the description notes below.
Yeah, and unfortunately, these numbers are a little bit old, right? But however, we can still take something from them, right? With what we have. So if you take a look at this line here that has the circles with the line, this represents the trampoline park injuries. Over here, you can see 1,000, 2,000, in increments of 1,000 all the way up to 7,000, and this is per year. Right, I'm not quite sure what they mean by unknown and other, but we can compare it to gymnastics, which is the dotted line with triangles.
Triangle.
Which you can see down here from 2010 to 2014 was pretty steady, somewhere between the 100 to upwards of 500 or 600.
Yeah.
However, when we look at the trampoline park, right, we see 2010, 2011. I'm not quite sure what happened in 2012.
I'm just gonna take a guess that in 2012 was that big boom that a lot of trampoline parks opened at the same time, because I remember this boom, just to trampoline parks everywhere at that point. But I don't know if it was 2012, but it makes sense if it was.
Right, and then the popularity became huge, right? And it jumped, right, from around 1,000 to 3,000 to almost 7,000 injuries, right? And so we have some more documents. Let's take a look at what those injuries look like. So this document, unfortunately, I think when the document was uploaded to the internet, it was uploaded in black and white, and I believe these were originally color. But we can kind of, we can take a best guess, estimated guesses here, right? So, up here, this looks like fracture.
That's home parks. That's home parks on the right and trampoline parks on the left, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Right. So looks like for both a
It's interesting how we have
majority
the same percentage for fracture, 34.4 for
32
both, either
32.4, right? Yeah.
32.4, sorry.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
And then second most common injury, or for
The
trampoline parks, the
biggest one, yeah.
first is sprains, right? And I don't think that
And
comes as a surprise, right?
for
When
those just
you're
listening, yeah, for those just listening at home, trampolines, we have a 27.7 percentage of sprains and 38.2 for the trampoline park percentage of sprains. So those
right,
are the two biggest injuries that we have.
right, and the other one is both the trampoline park and the garden trampoline is 32.4% of fractures, which
Fractures.
is,
Yep.
I mean, surprising and not surprising at the same time, right? If someone falls and doesn't know how to fall, they stick out their arm, you break, high risk of breaking that arm, right?
Honestly, I thought we would have more fracture compared to sprains. I know that there's a lot of sprains, obviously, right? But for some reason, I thought that we would have a bigger percentage of fractures than sprains.
Right.
That's just personal opinion.
Hmm. I don't know. I think the numbers are right. I think they're almost even, right? Between
No,
around
I know.
30%.
Yeah.
And
And
there's some
we
other
know, and
things. Some other
we
things we
know in the
have
gym.
here. What's that, Nuno?
Yeah. No, we know that in the gym sprains are very frequent, right? On
Right.
gymnastic gyms, we probably have a lot more sprains than what we have fractures. So it makes sense for those numbers to be like that. In my mind, I just thought that I could see every time they fall on a trampoline
Mhm.
park, they break something.
Right. So I think and some other things we have here that are listed are dislocations, concussions, pain, lacerations, contusions or abrasions. So let's check out this other chart that it shows us the percentages of where on the body they're getting hurt. So here on the left, right, this body, it represents trampoline park injuries, and on the right, this outline of a body represents home injuries. So we can see trampoline parks, 58% happen at the foot or ankle. This is kind of vague, right? Does that include the knees? I'm not
I know,
sure,
right?
right?
It doesn't
Because
really
there's no
explain. Yeah.
percentage around the knees. So my guess is that these trampoline park injuries to these lower extremities are from either jumping trampoline to trampoline, and you have either sideways, right, lateral momentum, right,
Mm-hmm.
and then you come in and twist, right, or jumping two at a time, and you know that the amount of force when someone comes down to double bounce you, if your legs are not
Yep.
strong enough or prepared enough, that can result in your knees buckling or the ankle rolling. And my guess is that home trampolines is the same thing, right? Someone bouncing two at a time. The trampoline now is uneven. The trampoline bed is
Mm-hmm.
uneven. And now instead of landing on a flatter surface, right, they're landing more at an inclined, either to the left or to the right, and then rolling the ankle or twisting the knee. What are your thoughts?
So I'm gonna take a guess that this is for the entire leg, and that's just a guess, and I'll explain why. Because for the arms, for example, it only show the arms as well. And how
Mm-hmm.
many forearms do you think we have there? Because elbows of landing with straight arms, right? How many do we have included there? It's not really specific. So I'm gonna guess that this 58% for the trampoline park and 36% for the lower part of the body is for the entire lower part of the body,
Right.
for all the legs.
Right. Yeah. And I think the same thing with the arms, right? Trampoline park has
Yeah,
16% injuries to the arms. At home, the trampolines, they have 32%,
32.
and that can be fractures of the wrist, hand, right? Ulna radius, those
And
arms in your forearm.
and I think it makes sense, right? With no instruction whatsoever, the first thing that the kids do if they're falling on their back is put their arms behind them, right? At trampoline parks, if there is a little bit of instruction to tell them, oh, don't put your arms behind you, it can already reduce that injury significantly. And I think we can discuss a little bit after these graphs the education of the staff, but that's for later. But I think that would explain why those numbers at the trampoline park are lower than at home.
So let's just read these off really quick. So there's at home, there's an 8% injury rate to the torso. This can include the spine, ribs. There's also there's a 9% injury rate at the trampoline park to the body. This one's scary, right? Trampoline park and home. The trampoline park has a 4% injury rate to the neck. At home, there's a 5%, right? We know that one can potentially be very bad, right? So that any amount of percentage is scary there. And then to the head, excuse me, is more like I'm assuming concussion, or
Concussion,
maybe you fall and take a knee or a foot to the head. And if you're jumping too close to others, it's very possible if you fly and trip that you fall into another person and hit your head. So
or at
parks,
home they go against the poles of the nets and they break their heads. That's also possible.
the poles of the nets. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
a lot of them, and I have to give a shout out to Spring Free. They do a garden trampoline, and their main goal, right? I mean, they enjoy having fun and they want to exercise. Their main goal is to keep children and young adults safe on the trampoline, and they've made the nets like rods, rounded, so if you fly into them, right, they bend more, so they go away from you. And there's no frame on the trampolines, so basically there's a frame with
there's no
fiberglass
springs.
rods that stick up, and then they kind of bend to the side. And so as you jump, they bend a little more and then flick up, right? Bend a little more and flick up. So even if you fall on the very edge, there's no frame to, to hit your head or arms or something like that. So while we're talking about these things and we're saying the bads, there are a lot of people out there that are trying to do a lot of good to help, prevent these injuries here. So what are some things that are being done? So Spring Free is trying to help, right? So what about trampoline parks? Is there anything that you know about? Are they educating the workers that you know of?
So I think that's where we have the biggest problem right now, I think, because there's so many trampoline parks, and some of them might be trying to educate their staff, some of them might be trying to get better, but I still think there's a lot of them that are not regulated, right? That employ super young people, so they don't have to pay them a lot of money. And we know that younger people will not be as mature as older coaches, so they will not enforce the rules as much. Simple as that. They will not have the same education as trampoline coaches have. Most of them. It doesn't. All these as asterisks, right? You can always find an exception to these examples that I'm saying, but the majority, the highest percentages, it's unfortunately it's what's happening. And this is what I keep hearing people telling me, is that they have super young, just kids there, monitoring other kids, and they don't say anything, they don't give any instructions, they just go in and do whatever they want at trampoline parks. They're not even required to have a CPR course, so that's what I hear. Okay, I don't know if it's true. I think that's the problem, because we don't know if it's true. That's the problem. These parks should be regulated in a way that these coaches should have education to do that, right? They should be able to explain to the athletes that are coming in the dangers of trampoline and how to operate correctly and safely on a trampoline. And I'm not sure all owners really want to do that, because they only want to make money, and trampoline parks can give you a lot of money if you have a lot of people there. So does it really matter the injuries? For me it would, and for me as an owner it does, but I don't know if everyone is like this, right? And again, I think the fact that there is nothing making them having to certify their coaches is probably the biggest problem.
Yeah, I think there needs to be some kind of regulation, right, to do that. And I think, I mean, I can't believe that the insurance companies are not following that, right? So like, if there's a pool, right, if you want to open a business and have a pool, I think by law they have to have a lifeguard there, right? And that lifeguard has to be certified, right? And so why, you can't just have Joe Schmo come in and be like, oh, I've never swum before, I'm going to be a lifeguard, right? That's impossible.
I know,
So I think, you know,
but
something, I'm
unfortunately, I
really
think that's what
surprised that hasn't
happens.
happened yet. I'm really surprised that
Yeah,
hasn't happened yet.
and
So,
the thing, I just hope the insurance companies don't jump the gun and say, oh, because these already tried to happen in the past, and then the federations intercede, and they didn't bundle everything together, competitive trampoline with the backyard trampoline and with trampoline parks, and okay, so you're all the same thing. Your insurance is going to
right.
be huge, right? So I sure hope that the insurance companies can still make the difference and see, okay, wait, look at the numbers of injuries here, look at the number of injuries there, right? So they're different business, because we are different businesses.
Right. Absolutely. And I think, yeah. And that needs, I think the insurance companies are getting a little bit better nowadays as more TNT clubs open and are away from trampoline parks and away from artistic gyms, you know. So I think
Yeah.
they're able to see better look at the rates.
So
So
in the end, and before we talk, how could we possibly help or change this? Uh, do you think that trampoline parks are hurting competitive trampoline?
mm, aside from the reputation, right, as far as like insurance companies go,
Mm-hmm.
I think they're helping. I think people are exposed, right? They jump on the trampolines and then they see videos of people doing competitive trampoline, like, wow, I was jumping 2 inches off of the trampoline and this person's jumping that high and with that much control and doing all these flips. So I think the exposure is a good thing. I don't think the injury rate, it's tough with the injury rate, right? It's tough
So
to
that's what
justify and
that's
say,
my
but that's not for competitive trampoline. That's in general. Is it a good thing or
yes,
bad thing?
but
For competitive
so for
trampoline, I think it's a good thing. But in general, I that's a tough question.
but for me, so this is where I stand, right? I agree with the publicity part. I agree with the putting it out there part. But I think when these athletes or these families go to do a birthday party at the trampoline park, right, and they see a injury, small or big injury, right, they don't go out of there thinking, oh, I really want my kid to do this at a competitive level. I think
Hmm.
that's the biggest problem with the mindset, right? They see those
But
injuries and like,
yeah,
ooh, I'm never bringing my kid here again, right? So I
that's
think
true.
that's the biggest problem that
That's
we have.
true. And I
So
know that
that
when
our numbers are higher due to the publicity, but they're lower due to the injuries. So they're
mhm.
kind of balancing themselves, I think, at this moment.
And that brings a good point because I remember, I don't know if it was last year or a few years ago, that I was calling different gyms to see if they'd be interested in doing field trips to our facility.
Mm-hmm.
And our facility is called Elite Trampoline Academy. And they're like, oh, no, that's far too dangerous, you know. And we're like, well, actually, we're much safer than a regular artistic gym, you know. And she's like, no, it's okay, you know, we believe you, but you know, thanks anyway. And you know, I think that happened because of the trampoline parks, right? Because
Right.
people have
So
know the reputation of how dangerous they can be.
and
Um,
unfortunately, I think the bad things travel faster than the good things. So yes, trampolines are awesome, but trampolines are very dangerous,
yeah, yep.
right?
There is always the negative that travels faster. All right, so let's talk about what can we do? How can we change this? Should we get them over on our side, the competitive side, right? Should we shut down trampoline parks? Um, you know, what about these boys that are jumping on their backyard trampolines or garden trampoline and getting injured, right? What can we do about that? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think there's two ways, in my opinion. First of all, backyard trampoline. Okay, and let's be fast. Backyard trampoline. I think we as competitive gyms should have a program where those athletes can go in, like we talked already at the beginning. Regulated open gyms, bring them into here, show them how to catch up, and not to catch up, but show them how to be safer, show them how to evolve, and with the right progressions. I think most of those kids would probably integrate those programs really easily. They still love to go to trampoline parks because they have no one that tell them what to do, and they love to
Hmm.
do their stuff. Okay, but I think it's our job to have a place for them in our gym if they're interested. Okay, trampoline parks. I don't think we should shut them down, but I do think they should be regulated to education. These coaches that are there should be mandated to have the
Are
same
they coaches?
certifications we
Should they
have.
be called coaches?
Well, that's a good point, but I'm going to call coaches anyway. Okay, but that's a good point. They probably should not be called coaches, but I'm going to call them coaches anyway. But again, we look at what certifications do we need to be at national championships, right? What did you do? You pay the annual
Safety,
membership.
background, safe
Yes, but you
sports.
do an online
Um,
course that it doesn't have to be you doing it. Anyone else can do it, and you can try it as many times as you want. So in the end, no one fails that course. So anyone can be a coach. They pay, they do the background check, they do the safety course, and they don't. Right now, they don't have to do anything. They do the T210 annually. That's it,
yeah,
right? What kind of education do our coaches actually have, right? They have, because we keep doing these camps and clinics and we keep connecting with them, and every time we see someone doing or approaching a skill in a way that we thought we could find a better way, we try to help them, right? But there is not a path yet that USA Gymnastics has provided for these coaches to start in the system and say, okay, level 1, I need to do this. Level 2, level 3, 10. In Portugal, there is a system, and you cannot go to national championships without, I think it was level 2. I don't remember, right? So we don't have
yeah,
that. So we need to
yeah.
start ourselves if we want to have other people do it as well,
But then
right?
you kind of get
Now,
everyone training and teaching one certain way, right? And that kind of, there's many ways to teach, certain skills and many ways to do things.
I don't think, for example, the FIG academies, they're a great tool. You don't see everyone teaching the same way. It's just a certification that you went through the course and that you know the basics of safety, and you know progressions to teach that skill. If you want to grab other progressions, you can grab other progressions, and I can tell you that will depend a lot on the people that is teaching, if they're open enough to allow other ways to be done, or if they want everything their way. Right
Right.
now, that is up to the person or to the institution that provides the certification. But if it me giving the course, I would allow other ways to do it, and I'm pretty sure you would allow it as well, right? So I
Right.
think this is where USA Gymnastics can do better, because whenever we have it for ourselves, then we can say, you know what, our coaches go through this process of certification. Trampoline parks, someone should mandate or someone should regulate that your coaches should go through this process of certification as well. And I
Right.
think
Even if it's
when
a
we
one
get to that
time,
point,
you know what? I think to regulate the trampoline parks, it could be something as simple as a one time thing, like you would get a CPR cert, right? You go in, few hours, right? You learn the basics, you see the basics, you see the
yeah.
dangers, right? I think that much basics could be taught in like a one time 2 to 3 hour seminar.
And we know that some individual companies or I don't know what we can call it, parties have tried to go or are doing regularly, going to trampoline parks and providing them education. We know that, but it's not a state regulated. It's not an institution regulated, right? So it can be different for every single one of them. The trampoline parks are not mandatory. They're not mandated to do it. They do it if they think they
Yeah.
think that is good to do it, or they don't do it if they don't care about it, right? So
Right. So
so it,
now that you brought up this point, I'd be interested to, or if someone could tell us to research, is it by law that the lifeguard is there, or is it the insurance companies that are pushing that?
that's a good question.
So I'd like to see where that should come from. Should it be coming from, the government regulating these things, or the insurance companies regulating these things, saying, hey, we're not going to cover you unless these coaches or supervisors are there, with
Absolutely.
appropriate education and knowledge. All right, so I think, right, so we can, especially with the garden trampoline or backyard trampolining, I think we can bring these athletes into our programs, and I think it'd be a great thing, like for the good reasons that we said before, all the characteristics that they carry with them, right? 2-trick competitions. We had these at Free Vaulting Cup. We had them at, I think, Grenzen Cup, some various
Mm-hmm.
competitions. No execution, right? You just doing these 2 spectacular creative tricks, which is exactly what those athletes in the garden trampolines want, right? They want to do some big tricks, and I think this opens their eyes to wow, I can still do gymnastics where I have to point my toes, keep my legs straight, do the progressions, and be creative and try big tricks, right? They can see that it's not one
Mm-hmm.
or the other. They can do both. Double mini. These double mini athletes are pushing the limits, right? Full and Randy, Miller plus plus, right? Triffus, it's only a matter of time before we see Triffus Rudy out on double mini, right? So I think this is something that also the athletes that are going to the trampoline parks, doing big tricks into the pits and at home, I think that's something also that's very appealing to them. Another point, I think maybe changing the uniform, right? The Leo, the singlet, right, with the shorts,
For
being
these athletes
short
would
for
be very
some,
important.
it's not their cup of tea. Uh, and I
Absolutely.
get it, and I think there's other ways, other things that we can do, and I think they've allowed, and actually I don't know if this is FIG or just USA Gymnastics, about the tank top, right? The skin tight tank top, like the Under Armours. So I know,
I
I think it
actually
might be
think it's
FIG.
FIG. I think it's
Yeah.
FIG. I think
So they've
you can
allowed
do it. Yeah.
this, but I think they also kind of give you maybe a look when you show up and wearing this, right? So if that could be more common, I think more athletes would jump on board, right? If it's just, oh, I just have to wear a cutoff tee that, that baseball player or that football player or the soccer
Right.
player
Yeah.
is wearing, it's the same thing, right? I think that could be a huge thing. And then also, and I know one gym in Texas has done this, combine the competition. So there are backyard trampoline or garden trampoline competitions out there. And what they did was they said, hey, come to our gym. We're going to supervise. And I wasn't there, so I don't know what they were allowing and not allowing. But I think if they say, yeah, come on in, we'll let you. And then they say, hey, you're only allowed to do this, 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 and this, right? Then I think that's enough exposure and safety, right? It's the best of both worlds. They get into the gym, they get their foot in the gym, they get to jump on a bed trampoline, they get to do their creative routines or styles, but under the supervision of someone who's been trained and experienced in the sport of trampoline.
Mm-hmm. I think you're absolutely right, Stephen. I think like you say, most of the times you hit the nail in the head, right? So I think you're spot on. To be honest, I think there's a lot of things we can do to incorporate these athletes and even help these trampoline parks. If they
Yes.
ask us for our help, why not? I'm more than available to helping them everything we can related to trampoline. Okay, we want everyone to be safe, and we want trampoline to be developed worldwide. And I know this may sound cliche, but you know what? Click that like button, because you know what it does? It tells the YouTube algorithm that this video should be spread to a larger population. So if you want other people connected with trampoline more, click the like button.
Yeah,
Simple thing.
absolutely. And most of these athletes that are on their backyard trampolines are watching their videos on YouTube. That's where they're learning, right?
Right?
So that's
Exactly. So
another
we
great
want
point.
this video to get to them.
Yeah,
So they know where to go for more instruction.
yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think that a lot of people are already taking steps to help, right? But we need to have this conversation with more people, right? So this issue can become larger, and then it eventually goes to all of the trampoline parks and all of the competitive trampoline gyms, and everyone's on the same page. Well, we can talk forever on this discussion, and I'm sure you guys are going to be leaving lots of comments and sending us messages. So
Please do.
we hope you enjoyed the information that we were able to share. But we really want to hear your opinions. So reach out to us, comment below, email us at trampolineinsight@gmail.com. You can reach us on Twitter at trampinsight or on Instagram at trampolineinsight. You can also send us a voice message with questions or opinions by following the link in the episode description, and we'll play it and answer it on the podcast. Thank you guys for listening. We can't wait to read those comments and have some discussion with you, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Bye, guys. See you all soon.